Hello, my name is Jason Lanier, and I'm sharing a video today related to what I'm seeing on the streets of Cuba in regards to the rioting over there.
Thousands of demonstrators spilling into the streets of Cuba this weekend, calling for an end to the 62-year communist regime.
I'm going to share some footage from my many trips I've taken to Cuba so you can get a real feeling for this special country and its people. I've had the opportunity to travel to Cuba on 4 different occasions over the course of 2 years, all for photojournalistic purposes. I went there on 2 solo trips, one of which I took my sons with me because I didn't feel like they could truly appreciate what they have as Americans until they saw how people live in a communist country.
We are now riding in a taxi that is pretty much a picnic table hooked up to a 3-wheeler motorcycle.
I also took 2 different groups of photographers down there with me so they could see for themselves what I had experienced. Give me your camera.
Yeah, it's attached.
I got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is some cool stuff in here. How is it, Brad?
I've been a lot colder.
You only live once. We're in Cuba in the middle of a cave. I'll probably never in my life be back here. So, why the hell not?
Wow.
During the time period of 2017 and 2018, you could go down to Cuba legally as an American, and the whole idea was to support the Cuban people by staying in their Airbnbs, supporting local farmers, etc. In fact, you can see where you already see the specular highlight on his forehead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we support the local guy.
This would be the place to buy them.
Yeah,
This would be it. It really was a special time for 2 countries and their citizens to be able to meet after a half century of embargoes and bans on travel.
We're in Cuba! Yeah, we're in Cuba, here with Jason Lanier in one of his workshops.
Nice meeting you.
It was a pleasure to meet you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck with your journey.
So Pierre, what do you think about that posing class?
Amazing, I learned a lot. All of the poses he taught us.
Thanks, Jason.
Stay right like that, don't move.
Great job. Really? Oh,
I need this shot.
I knew it! Thank you, buddy!
I need this.
I sent it to you.
Okay, now I'm like addicted to the starburst thing you showed me.
What are you about to do?
I'm about to get a tattoo in Cuba.
When many of us see images of Cuba, we're thinking things like The Fast and the Furious, or from photographers that have visited like me. When we see these images, it's easy to romanticize Cuba as a visitor, but it's a much different experience as a Cuban. While we as Westerners find the romance in the old American cars that dominate their streets,
I bet it's like that for all the Americans.
I'm sure.
Oh, Americano! Havana!
the reality is that these cars are actually a symbol of the fact that Cuba's economy for the average Cuban hasn't grown in over 60 years.
You're Rastafari! Give me money!
For many of us in the Western world, we really don't understand poverty, and we really don't value our freedom. We may think we do, but unless you've traveled extensively and have been with people from around the world, it just isn't possible to grasp what others who are less fortunate are living on a daily basis. I didn't understand it until I went to Ethiopia. It's hard to fathom unless you've been to some of these places.
¿Usted cómo se llama?
Yo, Cornelio.
Mucho gusto, amigo.
¿Y tú?
Me llamo Jason.
Ah, tú hablas bastante español también.
Un poco.
If you watch news coverage, you'll see that the newscasters are saying that people are rioting because there aren't enough COVID-related supplies. For anyone to say that means they just don't understand Cuba at all. And yes, the vast majority of our politicians have never set foot on Cuban soil and are clueless as to what really happens there. On any given day in Cuba, it's a lottery if there are any supplies at the local market. Eggs, bottled water, cooking oil, you name it, you never know if it's going to be available. Even things like banks, ATMs, everything is very difficult to use or access, and credit cards don't even work down there. Again, Cuba reminds us modern countries of a bygone era, and we romanticize it. But for these people living it on a daily basis, it isn't romantic at all. While in Cuba, you'd be amazed at how fearful they are to say anything related to their government out of fear of retaliation. I was at a restaurant and asked if they had any steak on the menu to order. They said they did, but it was very expensive and hard to acquire. When I asked why, I jokingly said something to the effect of, "Are all the cows over at the Castro residence?" This kind of offhand joke would normally elicit a few laughs over here in the free world. But when I said this in Cuba, the server got nervous, quickly walked away, and the other Cubans looked at me as if I was going to get them in trouble. It was very telling, and I quickly learned to never speak about Castro again. Everywhere you go in Cuba, there are giant billboards, murals, and statues of Fidel Castro or Che Guevara. These reminders of who is in charge are so in your face that it's impossible to forget. Did you know that at the time of his death, Fidel Castro was worth nearly $1 billion? If you really want to know about the leadership in Cuba, ask the Cubans who have fled and come to the United States. Freedom of information. There is no Wi-Fi in homes in Cuba. You must purchase Wi-Fi cards that are only available for use in public squares or in government-run hotels or establishments. You'll literally see masses of hundreds of people every night in a town square trying to access the internet. This government-run internet service is the same speed as dial-up and can be shut down at any time at the discretion of the government. Freedom of movement. Anywhere you stay in Cuba, you are required to register with the hotel or Airbnb, and you have to hand over your passport per order of the government during your stay. Sometimes the Airbnb landlords will give it back to you while you're staying there, but they're actually supposed to hold on to it until you leave. Handing over your passport in a communist country is pretty scary. One of the most tense and most enlightening experiences I had in Cuba was when I was there with one of my groups in 2018. We had a local guide that we had contracted to help us who I'll call Mario. We were staying in the small farming community of Viñales, which is where the tobacco farms are located, which meant we had to have our group of photographers spread out in about 4 different Airbnbs because the houses there are so small. One day after doing a trek to the local tobacco farms on a horseback ride, we all got back to town. I was in my Airbnb getting ready for dinner when I got a call from one of the photographers in my group telling me that Mario is in trouble with the landlord of the Airbnb and that he's been arrested and taken to the police station. Even more bizarre, I was told that a police car was being sent to my Airbnb and that unless I went to the police station and spoke with them about Mario, he would be in custody indefinitely. So I get dressed, walk out the door of my Airbnb, and there is a taxi waiting for me with a police car behind it. I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? I go to the police station and end up in a nearly 3-hour ordeal of trying to get Mario released from custody. What caused all of this was Mario got a message that apparently his grandmother was sick and he needed to return to Havana. So when he told the landlord he needed to return, the landlord assumed he was lying and must have stolen something because why else would he leave? So the landlord called the police and had him arrested. It took me the entire night from 7 to 10 p.m. to first release Mario from a cell, and then to have him come back and speak for himself in the station with all of us. When Mario came out, I point blank asked him, "Did you steal something?" He said no. I said, "You better be sure because I'm really sticking my neck out for you here, brother." And let me tell you, there was a moment while I was arguing with the cops and the landlord, because he was there too, that I had this almost out-of-body experience where I realized, hey man, you're standing in a dilapidated, low-lit police station with a picture of Fidel Castro on the wall, arguing with cops in a communist country where you have no rights. What are you doing? It really was a very sobering moment. I realized that my whole life experience of free speech, freedom of movement, probable cause, and that you're innocent until proven guilty were informing all of my actions in this police station, yet they had no power in this country. After some very tense hours of negotiations, I convinced the cops to open Mario's backpack to see if there were any stolen belongings in there. And if there weren't, I had their agreement to release him. They opened up his backpack, and to my relief, there was nothing but Mario's belongings in there. And we left the station. Mario thanked me for getting him out of there, saying he didn't know when he would have gotten out had I not intervened. Does this make me a hero? No. If anything, it was a huge risk to get involved. But the free part of me that is so ingrained in my spirit couldn't stand the thought of the guide that I hired rotting in some jail for doing absolutely nothing. And that's why I made this video. I'm not Cuban. I don't know what it's like to live there my entire life. But I have been there enough to know what it's like. I've met the beautiful, vibrant people who live there, who yearn to be free.
¿Usted es su abuela?
Sí.
Sí. ¿Puedo sacar su foto de él?
Sí, ¿cómo que no?
Eso yo le puedo pagar.
No,
No, no pago.
¿para qué?
¿Un brazo? Un beso?
Ah, bueno.
Okay.
I'm making this video because I've spent special moments with these people and I truly feel for them.
Oh, gracias, amigo.
No, no hay problema, que yo garantizo todo esto con el mío. Si le pasa algo a este carro, para que sepa.
Es mi abuelo.
No, tu hermano.
Tú eres mi hermano.
Communism doesn't work. Cuba is a beautiful country that suffers from true abject poverty. Its buildings are crumbling. The average Cuban makes $27 a month. The tobacco farmers you've seen in my videos are only allowed to harvest and sell 10% of the crop that they make on their farms. Worse yet, the vast majority of Cubans don't work because there is no work. On any of my trips when I've gone down to Cuba, I've truly made efforts to try and support the actual Cuban people.
People ask me all the time, how do we get people to do things, or how do you get yourself into places? It's by talking to them, it's by just communicating with them.
At the crux of this, I'm for freedom, and my thoughts and prayers are with the Cuban people during this time. I'm not pro-government, I'm not pro-corporation. I'm pro-freedom and pro-liberty. Everyone on this planet deserves the right to choose the life they want to live without the yoke of the government hanging over their necks, with the weight of that yoke eventually breaking their backs. Free Cuba. Let the Cuban people be free. And those in the free world should all be supporting the efforts of the Cuban people to finally attain their freedom. You don't see anyone in our country leaving it to go to a communist country, do you? But there's a reason for that. It doesn't work! Any Western politician that praises the Cuban government should just do us all a favor and move there so we never have to hear from them again. Communism only works for those who yield the power of the government, not for those who have to live under its weight. I hope this has helped, and I truly hope for the freedom and happiness of all people, no matter what they look like, what language they speak, or where they live. All people deserve to be free.